Jonathan Major's interview. Let's talk about it. I know I'm late, but we definitely need to talk about this because, yeah. I did do a sit down on another channel about the interview. I think it was at Hindsight, but we didn't actually get the opportunity to go into the interview and actually make any comments about the interview. We kind of just went back and forth a lot of the time regarding the evidence and the trial and all of that stuff. So we didn't actually get there. So I want to do this video to talk about the main things that stood out for me and 5 things we can learn about toxic narcissists and abusers from this interview. The first one being him minimizing his past behavior. When the woman made reference to the Rolling Stones, he was like, yeah, I've been an a-hole before. I haven't been the best with other women. Because a lot of these women accuse him of not being physically abusive, but definitely emotionally abusive. So to me, that's his way of minimizing emotional abuse. Because it's emotional abuse and you can't really put your finger on it, without actively knowing the tactics of emotional abuse, it can be easily minimized into being, oh, well, you know, I was just a bit of a jerk, or I didn't really respond well in that situation, or something like that. But for me, based on what I've seen in this relationship, he's not a very good judge as to whether he was an a-hole or emotionally abusive. Because even in this relationship, he says there was no abuse. But we can clearly see emotional abuse happening within that relationship. Him threatening to kill himself when she wants to go and get medical attention for something that happened that was clearly something to do with him. Then we have the triangulation in regards to him comparing her to other famous, respected Black women like Michelle Obama and Coretta King Scott, which is absolutely ridiculous because he's no Martin Luther King. And this is what toxic narcissists and abusers do. They will compare you with people they have no business comparing you to, right? They'll set the standards for you through the roof and compare you to people that you couldn't even begin to be like. First of all of the women that he compares her to are Black women. She's a white woman, so she can never be that. Aside from all the other qualities, which were taken out of context by him, because Coretta Scott King wasn't just Martin Luther King's, support system. She was supporting him whilst being an activist herself in that relationship, right? So again, he had no business using that comparison and triangulating her in that way. And obviously he was doing it to make her feel less than, obviously, which is emotional abuse. Some may call it being an a-hole, but it's actually emotional abuse. That is what that is. And then there's also forms of physical abuse where he forcefully puts her back in the car. Like, it's unnecessary. She wasn't coming at him. She wasn't coming out swinging. I covered this in my other videos about it. But the point is, there are elements of not only emotional abuse, but physical abuse in that relationship. But in that interview, he is adamant that there was no abuse in that relationship. So again, this guy is not a reliable judge of what is or isn't abuse, quite frankly. And from that, we can deduce that he has no idea whether he was emotionally abusive or not in his past relationships either. And then when he's asked directly about the text message in which she's basically telling him she's going to go to get medical help for injuries that obviously involved him in some way, he claims he doesn't know how the injuries came about, which is an absolutely ridiculous lie. And he's not the first one to do it. Johnny Depp did it as well. Like, he claimed that he's never been physically abusive towards Amber Heard, yet there are conversations where she's talking about the physical abuse and he doesn't dispute it in any way. And he just carries on with the conversation. And it's the same thing with this one. In the text message, she's talking about, the relationship and why would she say what really happened when it's clear that she wants to be with him, which is an implication that he's got something to do with it. And in that, he never says what injuries, how did this happen, or anything. Through the messages and the type of communication and the exchange that they had, it is clearly implied that they both know how the injuries took place. Yeah. In this interview, he doesn't know how it happened. It's a ridiculous lie at this point, right? So you're lying, you're minimizing. And the third point I want to make, he still hasn't stopped the emotional abuse. Because when he's asked about Megan Good, he goes back to the Coretta Scott King reference. Check it out.
How would you describe your relationship?
She's an angel. She's held me down like a Coretta, you know? I'm so blessed to have her, you know. The relationship is still fresh, but, you know, I think I found her.
Because he knows what he's doing. It's called a dog whistle, but it's less of a dog whistle in this case because we actually know about the Coretta King Scott reference from before. But what toxic narcissists and abusers will do is they'll have these private conversations with you about things where they're comparing you and doing the triangulation and stuff like that. And then they'll make a statement out in public that is hurtful to really only you because you know the broader context of that situation, right? So how do you think Grace feels hearing that Megan Good is a Coretta Scott King? Exactly. He's still triangulating. And the thing is, you might think, well, you know, it's just an innocent comment. He doesn't have to make that comment. He actually goes out of his way to make that comment in order to make that point clear that Megan Good is much better than her. And we still don't know who was on the phone that night when they had that argument and broke up. We still don't know who was dying to kiss him. If it was Megan Good, it makes that comment even more hurtful. And on the flip side of that, he's also laying the foundation to emotionally abuse Megan Good. Yeah, that's right. Megan Good isn't getting off scot-free here. What he's actually doing is triangulating her, but in a positive way, and implying that she is, in fact, better than his ex. Because we all know the conversation he had with Grace regarding Coretta Scott King, right? And Megan Good was actually stood by him in court, so she definitely didn't miss it. To me, this is love bombing, this is triangulation with sprinkles of a grand gesture by him making this statement publicly. And toxics, narcissists, and abusers love to put you on a pedestal right before they kick you off. And whilst it might not have mattered to her in the past whether she was a Coretta Scott King or not, later on down the line, when Jonathan decides she's not, that's gonna hurt. And I can bet that's exactly why he's doing it. So with this triangulation, he's actually killing two birds with one stone. He's devaluing Grace and setting up Megan for a grand fall. So even in that interview, he's still being emotionally abusive. He says he was shocked about the trial and the outcome and all of that. Quite frankly, I'm not, because like I said, there's abuse running all the way through it. So what can we take away from this interview about toxic narcissists and abusers? Well, one, they will minimize their toxic, narcissistic, and abusive behavior. So it's not good enough to ask questions to uncover any mistreatment they've given in the past. You also have to A, know the tactics of abuse, and B, ask specific questions about the mistreatment to assess whether it's abuse and whether that person is even capable of judging their behavior in an accurate way. Two, we know that they set standards that are so high or set goals that are so unrealistic that there's no way that you can meet them, so that you can feel like a total failure when and if they so choose. Three, they'll blatantly lie in ridiculous ways, even when the evidence to the contrary is staring them in the face. Four, they will continue to abuse and devalue you even after the relationship is ended, and even when they are, so say, happily in love with someone else. Which is why no contact is so important. And they'll do all of this whilst at the same time setting the new person up to suffer the exact same fate as you. Run, Megan, run. And finally, 5, when evidence of emotional and physical abuse are laid out in front of them, and even when they're found guilty of such acts, they will refuse to acknowledge or take any real responsibility for their behavior. That interview was done to clean up his image. And to the untrained eye, maybe it did that. But for me, it's clear that he's not sorry. He's not taking any accountability. And he is still actively emotionally abusive. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel and hit that bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. And until the next time, live boldly, live empowered, live from the inside out. Bye for now.